Hello. So, not too long ago, we went to Chester Zoo, and I want to spend some time talking about it today because we went in the winter time, and I know that's probably a little bit of an unusual time to go to a zoo in the UK, isn't it? Because of how wet and windy and rainy it is. And to be fair, the weather was no different. It had been raining in the morning. It cleared up a little bit in the afternoon, but it was still quite wet and cold and just damp everywhere. And usually you would probably choose to go to a zoo in the summer months, wouldn't you? Because it's just nice. It's busier, but it's, nice weather and stuff, and it's nice to be out and about in the sunshine. But we didn't do it like that. We went in November, as I've said, and it's now February. It's taken me quite a while, just because of Christmas and not being very well, and getting through the longest year ever as well, which is also known as January to most people. Anyway, with that quite awful intro out of the way, let's get to talking more about Chester Zoo, and let's find out together whether or not it's worth going in the wintertime. Now, it was a day that I thought was going to be quite relaxing, but it ended up being a little bit rushed. We left our house on the Friday night down in South Wales, and we went all the way up to Chester. We stayed in the Premier Inn, Chester North, which is just next door to Morrison's. This becomes very important in just a second. But 5 minutes before we got to the hotel, it was around about 10:30 in the night, my oil light in my car decided that it wanted to make its presence known. And it was a red oil warning light as well. It was a massive beep all around the car. And it was like, oh my God, what on earth is that? It was my own responsibility. I should have basically made sure that there was enough oil and stuff in the car, and I just didn't. So straight away, I knew that we needed to go somewhere the next morning, in other words, the morning of the zoo, to go and get some oil, which is what we did. We basically lost a whole hour trying to find some oil. We started in Morrison's, which is right next door to the Premier Inn that we stayed in. There was nothing in the supermarket, nothing in the petrol station, so we ended up finding a Halfords, which was just a little bit up the road. But by the time we'd gone there, parked the car, gone in to get the oil, put the oil in the car, we'd lost a whole hour. And it was just, I don't know, it just turned into a little bit of a stressful morning. So that's lesson number one. Make sure you've got enough oil in your car. Lesson number two, make sure that you've double checked and then triple checked and quadruple checked the opening and closing times for Chester Zoo. I could have sworn that although it was an off-peak time, Chester Zoo was open until 5 o'clock, but I was wrong. And I had a look on the morning of going to the zoo when it closed, and it closed at 3:30. So by the time we got there at around about 11 o'clock, we had 4.5 hours to basically do a speed run. That's lesson number two. Do your research and don't be like me. Now, I'm going to purposefully leave the first part of the zoo out until the end, because actually, looking back through the footage, I think that this was essentially the highlight of the whole day. So we'll leave that until later on. I'll leave you with that footage at the very end of the video. And we're going to start with the butterfly house. Here's Chris looking really excited to go and see the butterflies. I'm just joking. Neither of us like a butterfly by any stretch of the imagination. We don't like things that fly at us either. For example, me with bats. More on that later on. But even though we don't like a butterfly house, as I've said before on this channel, anything is better than going to work. So in we went, and it was all right, to be honest. It was nice and warm in there. The butterflies were very colourful. It was nice to see them doing their butterfly things, I suppose. But as neither of us liked butterflies really, or things that fly at us and all of that stuff without any warning or any notice at all, it didn't take us long to make a very swift exit out of the butterfly house, and we moved on to the lions. And to be honest, I was disappointed to see that the lions weren't there. As you can see, the enclosure was empty. Apparently, according to the sign that was up against the enclosure, they were settling into their new home. So that was a little bit disappointing that we couldn't see the lions, but we were on a speed run, so it was like, right, okay, we can't see them. Where next? Where next? Where next? And we did go on to other parts of the zoo, and we started with the jaguars. Now, I'm pretty sure there are 2 jaguars here. I only saw one of them. As I'm sure many people know, jaguars are really, really good camouflage artists. And they know that you're there before you've ever realised that they're there watching you. And it really was a blink and you miss it type situation. But we still managed to get a glimpse of the jaguar before moving on to an area of Chester Zoo known as the Realm of the Ape. Now, this is where the Bornean and the Sumatran orangutans are kept. But there are other animals there as well, as you can see just here. And it was a really cool experience to see animals up close. In our experiences of going to zoos over the last few years, we've had a lot of up-close and personal animal encounters. There's a video on my channel of when we went to ARTIS Zoo in Amsterdam, and that day was just a day of just close-up animal encounters, like everywhere you looked. They had all sorts there: vultures, wolves, giraffes. Honestly, there was a lot of things that are there. I do recommend that zoo, and if you want to go and watch that video, feel free to, and if you want to subscribe whilst you're at it, then you know what to do. But for now, back to Chester, and one of the reasons that we were there in the first place is because Chris wanted to catch a glimpse of Chester Zoo's new Fusa pups, cubs. I'll show you them in just a second, but we didn't really know where they were, to be honest. But it was a good job that Chester Zoo has a lot of different big, huge signs up and maps and everything to tell you exactly where you are. We didn't end up getting a map from where you get your tickets scanned and stuff on the way in. You can download the app, I think, to get the map on your phone. We ended up taking a picture of a few of these big maps that you can see, just to see where we were, see where we could go next and all of that stuff. And yeah, on the way to the Fusa, we saw plenty of other animals as well, including penguins and flamingos, and also these giant otters, which we thought were really cool. And in that moment, it was just me, Chris, and these two giant otters that were swimming about in front of us. There was nobody else around, and it was quite peaceful, and it was quite tranquil and nice. Something else that was quite nice to see was how much the zoo were protecting the birds from a recent outbreak of avian flu. Some of the walk-through aviaries were closed. Now, in my day job, I work around avian flu, and I know how out of control it can get. So it was nice to see Chester Zoo taking those extra precautions to make sure that their animals were as safe as they could possibly be. Now, remember earlier when I said that I wasn't a fan of bats? It's time to talk about the bat house. I hated this bit. In fact, here's the proof.
I hate it. 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 I hate it.
Now, I managed to pull myself together, I think, eventually. No, I didn't. I've got to be honest. I can't lie about this. It was awful. It was a terrible experience. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Chris was loving life, and I guess that's the main thing, really, because she was enjoying herself. Chris loves bats, and I love bats as well. I can look at bats, but I don't want to be, walking amongst them when they're flying, because I just, oh, God. There was an experience that I had in this same bat house the first time that we went to Chester Zoo. All I will say is that they used me as a toilet. I went in there with a light-coloured t-shirt on, and I came out with a brown stain on the bottom of my t-shirt. It wasn't good. It wasn't a good experience. And it didn't happen this time, luckily. But it was still not very nice, because you're in the pitch black darkness and you've basically got things just flying past your head. I say things, bats, flying past your head, and you can feel the draft of their wings, like, up against your ears and stuff. And you're just thinking, oh, God, leave me alone. Oh, I was very, very happy to get out of there. But that didn't come without its difficulties. Trying to get out of this bat house, it was a little bit of a comedy sketch, to be honest. And it was to do with the member of staff that was making sure that everybody was out and there was no bats flying out after them. Watching this person try and get one bat out of this little area where they're not supposed to be, to then watch 3 or 4 other bats fly in. This went on for a good 20 minutes, and it just wasn't the best. It wasn't great. Eventually, crowds started to build, and other members of the public as well. I remember listening to one person, and he was like, do you want me to help? Like, people offering, their help to this person, which is nice, but still, when you want to get out of there. Because remember, I hated it.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Eventually, we all had to go out in single file, one by one. And yeah, for somebody like me who just wanted to get out of there, it was the longest 20 minutes of my life. It was an absolute nightmare trying to get out of there. I don't like a bat house, honestly. I'll do them for the sake of Chris, but I just don't like them. Having said that, though, as I've said before, anything's better than going to work, I think. Now, when we did eventually get out of there, we wandered around for a little bit longer and eventually stumbled across this, which is Dragons in Danger. And this was the home of the Komodo dragon. Now, we've seen Komodo dragons before in Prague, but only from a distance. This one was very up close and personal and much, much bigger. One of the members of staff was really busy giving talks about the Komodo dragon. And this was really interesting. But because it was a few months ago, I can't actually remember what they said. So let's move on. And it's the moment that Chris was waiting for all day. It was time to see the Fusa, who were not attacking. Obviously, if you haven't seen Madagascar before, then you probably won't understand that reference, will you? But anyway, they weren't attacking. They were all fast asleep. I tried my best to get as much footage of them as I could, but the glass was almost frosted. It was really strange, and it was really quite difficult to film them, but I was happy that Chris managed to see them, because we'd seen them on Chester Zoo's Facebook page a couple of weeks before, and she said to me at that moment, she was like, right, I want to go to Chester Zoo, and I was like, right, okay, let's book it in. But because of time constraints, I've got to be honest, after seeing the Fusa, we were pretty much done. Everything was pretty much seen that we wanted to see. And then we made our way back to the car, and I suppose it's this part of the video that I'm now going to talk about basically how quiet the whole zoo was. It was more than likely because it was November. I suppose it's called off-peak for a reason, but it just all felt a little bit deserted, really. It was still a good day, but it wasn't the best day that we've had at Chester Zoo. But then again, I think we'd been spoilt a couple of weeks before by going to Artis in Amsterdam. I'm not going to talk about it too much because there is another video on my channel, like I said earlier on, that talks about that zoo. But in terms of Chester, we still managed to see a lot in Chester. But it was definitely a different experience going in the winter. Now, in terms of price, we paid £36.50 per ticket. Do I think it's worth it? I didn't think it was worth it on our day. It might be worth it if you spend that money and you go in like an off-peak time. But because we only had 4.5 hours, it wasn't worth it at all for me. Now, just on closing time, I think one of the reasons it closed as early as it did when we were there is because of the lanterns and light show that they had. It was basically a separately ticketed event. I don't know what it was, but I think that was the main reason that the whole zoo closed at 3:30. But the lesson here, as I've said, is always to do your research. I've definitely learned my lesson. I'm going to be making sure that I do my research and look at the opening times in future. And I'm also going to make sure that there's enough oil in the car before I go anywhere as well. But before I let you go anywhere, I can't end this video without showing you what I consider to be the highlight of our day. It was right at the start of our day. It was the first thing that we'd seen. And it was all about the elephants for us on this particular day at Chester Zoo. We managed to be there at the right place at the right time. I'll just let the footage speak for itself in just a second. It was so nice and peaceful to be up close to these animals. Like, I've never been that close to elephants before. I've seen them, of course, but I've never been quite this close. And I'm not sure that the footage will do how close we were any justice, but I'll definitely try my best when I'm editing this video. As I've said, it was so peaceful. We could have stayed there all day, but as we've already discovered at this point, we were in a little bit of a rush. So my advice, if you're ever going to go to Chester Zoo, feel free to go in the off-peak times if you want to. You might have a really good time, but you do need all day. I would say maybe 7 or 8 hours perhaps. Like, you know, if you go in the summer months, then go from like opening time right the way through to closing time if you want to do everything all in one day. But that was Chester Zoo in the winter. This is the footage of the elephants. Thank you so much for watching if you've gotten this far. Not too sure where we're going next, but I can guarantee you I'll be doing my research before we go. See you next time.
Just a little snack. Elephant 2 ready at 10, 1 and 3, clear to close door 8.